A group of people in the Indonesian capital have had enough of the choking air and are taking action against the government. They have filed a lawsuit against President Joko Widodo and his government over the toxic levels of air pollution which regularly blankets the city.
Kalau bicara soal optimis, harusnya optimis karena ini adalah hak semua masyarakat dan lagi-lagi kita 31 pada saat ini menggugat, tapi kita punya petisi yang namanya aku-dan-polusi.org. Ini ada sekitar 1078 orang yang sudah mengisi petisinya. Artinya gugatan ini juga didukung oleh sekian ribu orang yang sepakat bahwa sudah saatnya sekarang melakukan tindakan dan kebijakan yang diambil harus berdasarkan kajian ilmiah dan langsung bisa dirasakan pada masyarakat dampaknya begitu.
Jakarta now rivals Beijing and New Delhi for polluted air. The city of nearly 10 million people is consistently ranked among the world's top 10 most polluted cities.
In recent weeks, pollution levels in Jakarta spiked to nearly 5 times the level recommended by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. And this is the first time Jokowi's administration is faced with such a lawsuit. Our correspondent in Indonesia, Chatni Vatvani, tells us more.
Well, it certainly appears to be the case now. The lawsuit is coordinated by a coalition consisting of, among others, the Jakarta Legal Aid Foundation, Greenpeace Indonesia, and the Indonesian Forum for the Environment. Now, a representative from the Legal Aid Foundation said that they had been monitoring and reviewing air pollution in Jakarta since 2016, and this lawsuit is a result of their findings. The representative also said that they conducted hearings and mediations with government agencies, but claims their response, the government's response, had been negative and tended to be on the defense, questioning the methods used for the tests and the studies. Well, there hasn't been a response from President Widodo yet. However, Jakarta Governor Anies Baswedan has said that every citizen has the right to utilize legal channels, and so he had no right to ban or even recommend them to not do that, as it is the basic principle of democracy. Now, he's also thanked NGOs who care about the environment, and he has said that he appreciates the data they discover, saying their studies can be utilized for government purposes. Now, separately, one of the demands in the lawsuit is for the government to change an existing regulation on 2.5 PM particles and bring it in line with the World Health Organization standards.
For more on the lawsuit, Professor James Chin joins us live from Australia. He is the director of the Asia Institute at the University of Tasmania. James, Jakarta's air has been heavily polluted for many years. What's causing this pollution, and why are the citizens only now taking this action?
Well, I think two things are pushing them for the legal action against the government. The first is that a couple of years ago, a lot of the NGOs, especially the NGOs from abroad, came to Jakarta and they started funding Indonesian NGOs. So they started to take measurements of the PM 2.5. So they've sort of built up the data set for the past 2 or 3 years. So they have enough data to launch a lawsuit. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they have built an extensive grassroots network throughout Indonesia, specifically on this issue. And this is not only an Indonesian issue. If you look at most of the capitals in ASEAN, they are suffering from some sort of environmental crisis, and air pollution is part of it. We know that, for example, in the Malaysian capital, even Singapore, every year you have the smoke coming in from the Indonesian side. So this is really nothing new. What is new is that the NGOs in Indonesia are actually taking on the Indonesian state through a lawsuit, and that is quite unusual.
All right, you mentioned that taking on, through a lawsuit, but, really, is there a strong legal basis for this, though?
Unfortunately, I don't think so, because the Indonesian legal system basically is always on the side of the state. So in this case, unless they can show that the Indonesian government is negligent on this issue, it's very, very hard. As far as I'm aware, there is no laws on the Indonesian books now that says that the Indonesian government is legally required to look after the air quality in Jakarta. So without that piece of law in the books, I think it will be very difficult for them to prove that the Indonesian government is liable for this issue.
So taking that into account, James, how do you think President Widodo and his government will respond now?
I think this lawsuit is essentially the NGOs trying to raise this issue, not only in Jakarta, but throughout Indonesia, about the dangers of air pollution. So they're trying to drum up maximum press coverage. My take is that Jokowi will probably answer this issue, but at the end of the day, I think the courts will rule on the side of the Indonesian government.
All right, you mentioned that about raising awareness. Is the lawsuit, an effective way to perhaps make the government do something about the pollution? Don't they have other options, as well to raise this issue?
The reality is that in a big city like Jakarta, right? If you know Jakarta well, many parts of Jakarta are actually quite poor. So in terms of looking after pollution, that's not really on the priority list. Indonesia, like most developing countries, believe in strong growth, and unfortunately, they think that growth and environmental protection, like air pollution, doesn't go hand in hand. So I think the idea behind the lawsuit is that they want it to be put on a political agenda so that the Indonesian parliament will do something about it. I suspect that people do worry about it, especially with what the NGO is saying, which is that the air pollution actually shortens your life and also is causing a lot of health problems among the elderly and among the children. So if you look at it purely from that health perspective, I suspect a lot of people worry about it. But given the fact that Indonesia is quite a poor society, a lot of people are trying to survive, I think this sort of attention won't last very, very long.
There certainly are many serious health considerations to take into account, James. But how are people in Jakarta coping with the worsening air quality then?
I think for the last few years, you'll find that a lot of Indonesians in Jakarta actually do realize that the air is getting worse. I think for the ordinary people in Jakarta, they blame the public transport system. Jakarta is famous for the traffic jams, and basically a lot of people think that you need to find a way around the transport issue. You need to get the cars out of the roads. If you can do that, that will go a major way in lowering the air pollution. My take is that the car pollution is actually just a small part of the overall thing. The problem with Jakarta is that Jakarta is basically, two things are happening. One is that Jakarta is slowly sinking, and also that millions of people try to move into Jakarta every year. So it's the growth issue and also the fact that there's really no proper urban transport planning in Jakarta that's causing all these problems.
James, thank you very much for that. We've been speaking there to Professor James Chin. He is, of course, the director of the Asia Institute at the University of Tasmania.